Well, greetings, Cap fans. It's episode 290 of the Captain America Comic Book Fans podcast. We have a very special episode for you today as we have a guest on the show. Can't wait to get to him. But I'm your host, Rick Verbanis. You know me. You know my co-host. He's the best gosh darn one out there. His name is Bob Lucius. Oh, Bob, if Monday was Star Wars Day, and Tuesday was Cinco de Mayo, what is today?
I have no idea.
It's Revenge of the Six.
Oh, Revenge of the Six. Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Happy Revenge of the Sixth Day to you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
You doing anything special to celebrate?
I don't think so. Doing this.
Yeah. All right. All right. Fair enough.
That's special.
Yeah. Do you do anything for Star Wars Day, or do you do anything for Cinco de Mayo? Do you do anything during those days?
No, I really don't. I don't. I used to when I was younger. I first several assignments I had in the Marine Corps were in the southwest of the United States. Arizona, down in Yuma on the Mexican border, and I was in San Diego.
So they really celebrate May the 4th there. Star Wars Day.
And Star Wars Day is huge
Yeah.
there for obvious reasons. Yeah. Oh, but I miss those days. I think I mentioned before. I did. I was talking to my wife. See, I get you two confused, Rick. We spend so much time together. And I used to go to this place where you could get like a bucket of beer. Have you ever been to a place like that? Where it's
they still
bucket?
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, oddly enough, not around here in Southwest Florida, but certainly in California, it was a big thing. You get just like a big bucket of
get six
beer.
Yeah, you get 6 beers, you get a few friends,
Yeah.
It's right there on ice. Yeah.
If the friends, they can watch you drink your 6 bears,
Yeah.
bucket of beers. I guess that's fine, I guess, if they don't mind. But yeah, but I miss that. So, but I just haven't recent years. I don't.
Do you like Mexican food?
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
I love it. But again, I was spoiled, living in that part of the country.
Sure.
It's just not the same down here.
Yeah.
So good Cuban food, but Mexican food's not so great. But
do you have a favorite dish?
I have a favorite dish. I like a good enchilada.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do. There is one good place we go to, and they make a good one. So
I'm a fajita kind of guy.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. And I am now, first of all, I don't like onions.
Yeah.
They're my kryptonite.
Yeah.
I don't like peppers.
Oh, all right.
So you're like, what the heck do you eat? So whenever I go to a Mexican restaurant, I will be like, I would like to get the chicken fajitas. One moment, as I tell you how I'd like to have this changed. I would like no onions, no peppers. Please add tomatoes. So chicken and tomato solamente, por favor.
Wow.
And then now here's the trick.
They call them Rickitas.
Yeah. You know what the trick is? Because I do that, I get more chicken.
Of course you do. Yeah.
Yeah. They can't just right.
That's
so and then because I tend to try to avoid flour. I'm not like gluten free, but I'm gluten light.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, and I like to have corn instead of flour.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you can hold the pico de gallo, because I don't like the onions and the little chopped stuff.
Right.
And I'm not a guac guy.
Yeah.
So
oh my gosh.
I know. So I like always like.
Yeah.
Can the waitress bring this back correctly?
Yeah. It's like a challenge.
It really is. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I cook a lot of Mexican. So we have at least twice a week here in the Lucius.
Okay.
Casa de Lucius.
Gotcha.
We make Mexican, but that's
I know. I'm like that guy.
I may do well, we don't eat chicken, so it'd be like a really, really impoverished Rickitas.
Yeah, it really was.
So if we were to have them at the Lucius household, but that's awesome.
I find like a good Mexican restaurant, you need to judge it on the salsa. It's kind of like going to an Italian restaurant. Like it's all about the sauce, right? Like if the sauce is good, then you're fine.
Yeah.
If the salsa is good at a Mexican restaurant, I will go back. You know the other thing I really, really don't like besides onions? Cilantro.
Oh my God.
And so it's tough finding so I make my own salsa.
Yeah.
So my salsa is the
Tomatoes.
opposite. It's well, instead of like cilantro and onion, it's
Yeah.
more like garlic
Yeah.
and yeah, and it's also smooth. So I like puree it so that it's more smooth
Right.
than chunky.
Okay. All right. It's almost like you could just spread it on bruschetta. So
Could be.
yeah.
It could
So
be. Except it's
that's
got a kick.
yeah.
It's got a real
So
kick.
do you have a preference between this is I know this is what the listeners really want to know. Do you have a
I know,
preference
right?
between
Like,
you
like what are we
have
talking about?
preference between black beans or a refried or a pinto on your
If I had a preference, I'd go refried.
really? Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. All right. I'm more of the hierarchy for me is like black beans, refried, and then pinto
Well, you
beans.
kind of gave that away when you put it in that order.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I like if I'm going to do refried, I prefer refried black beans. But
Yeah, no,
in
okay.
a pinch.
All right. So, listeners, if you just want to skip ahead,
Next week we'll be talking about Vietnamese food. So
yes, exactly, and why Rick
yeah.
doesn't eat it. um, so Bob, the other thing people are celebrating, well, David Michelini is having a birthday today. If you're um, listening to this or watching this on the day it comes out, May 6th, then it is David Michelini's birthday. And you may say, how is he involved with Captain America? Well, I'm glad you asked. So he actually did three Captain America stories, all in 1981. So he did issues 258 and 259. 258 was the blockbuster one, which was the I guess the pyro guy, right? Like that was, and I think they introduced a couple of the neighbors, including the firefighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then 259 was him versus Doc Ock. So that was a really good one. And then he did annual number 5, which Bob, I cannot for the life of me remember that
I
story.
I know I remember the cover, but I can't remember the story either. But
Yeah,
maybe we should look into that. That might be one to cover in the
it could be.
future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and this is really why I'm mentioning his name, is that he did a long, long stint on Amazing Spider-Man, including in 1989 the um, assassination plot
Mm-hmm.
story that had Captain America and Sabretooth. If you remember, we covered those three issues or three of that six-part issue in it was Amazing Spider-Man 323, 24, 25. And we covered that way back in episode 127, if anyone is interested in that.
Wow. 127. That means we are what, at 180 now?
We are at 290, Bob.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Yeah. We're almost
Time
up to,
flies.
well, 300 will be here before you know, but 350, Rick, we should have like a special logo made for 350 of like us
Mm.
from the cover of Captain America 350.
Yeah,
You
right?
know?
Like the two of us going against. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. Uh, oh, yeah, yeah. Anyway, speaking of 300,
Yeah.
that's 10 episodes from now, but that will be our next Captain America Community Theater.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the other thing we need to do. We need to start putting, I guess, a poll out there and start getting votes on what people want us to cover, because generally it's like a 1 or 2 part story that has a lot of voices, and so we're open to ideas.
Well, that sounds interesting. I am very much looking forward to sound effects.
Yep.
So
I know, right? So we'll put that out there in the Captain America comic book Facebook group. And by the way, if you haven't visited it and you're like, oh, I hate Facebook, I hate social media, check it out. Just do a search for Captain America comic book fans, and we will. I think we show up as Cap comic book fans. But anyway, there's a link in our show notes as well. But check out that because it is an oasis away from everything else that's kind of nasty in this world. There's a no negativity rule, and we really enforce that. We're here to celebrate and to appreciate, and it's quite the environment. It's quite the, um, I don't know. In many cases, it's a community, right?
it is, yeah. It's a friend circle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have made friends from that group, which in today's environment, I mean, we're all spread out so far, and of course, we've got local friends and stuff. But social media, for all its ills, does bring people together,
Mm-hmm.
and connects you with people who share common interests and common values and things like that. And the group has really been a place for me to connect with people I never would have had the opportunity to connect with before, and to form, real friendships. So I highly recommend it.
Agreed. And when you check it out, I'm going to tell you right now, would you please just answer the questions and agree to the group rules?
It's a small ask, but it's important.
All right, Bob. Going to give you a little uh, quiz here. Okay.
Okay.
In the last 30 days,
Uh-huh.
we had 35 people request to join the group. How many do you think we approved of the 35?
12.
7.
7.
People answer the freaking questions and
Yeah.
agree to the group rules. Well, it's
Yeah.
in. It's that easy.
Yeah.
So,
They're not
anyway.
like hard math questions. I mean, it's not, they're not like,
No, it's
if you left from point A to point B going 73 miles an hour and
no,
someone,
it's
it's nothing like that.
no,
Yeah.
it's who's your favorite Captain America creator?
Yeah. Easy
Simple as that.
peasy. Google it.
Do
Yeah.
you
I
agree to
mean,
the group rules? Yes or no? Are
yeah.
you here to will you refrain from negativity? Yes or no? I mean, like it's simple.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's well worth it. Do it, and we can't wait to meet you in the community.
Yeah.
Bob, we have a guest today. We're very excited to have him come on board. David Finch, who is a artist who, gosh, he's been around for decades now. And I'm sure he hate to hear me say that because he's not old. He just started at a very, very young age. And one of my favorite artists. And when we covered Avengers Disassembled last episode, and if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do. We did a recap of those 4 issues, and we talked a lot about David's art. Just really, really love his art. And then also he did Captain America, of course, in the New Avengers, which followed Avengers Disassembled. But his career expands way beyond that. And of course, he also has a great YouTube channel where he gives advice and tips on aspiring artists, which is really, really cool. So can't wait to talk to him.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this. So many times we have guests on the show, Rick, that like I haven't read a book for a while, or a series, a story arc, or something like that, and it prompts us to go back and read something that we even hadn't read before, or it's been a long time. And getting ready to have David on the show was an opportunity to go back and read some stuff of his, and man, just he's just phenomenal. And just gives you an appreciation for the opportunity this show provides, and in large part because of all your hard work hunting down these guests to have them on the show and to revisit some of those amazing stories from our younger years. So many of us are still young, and to just really dig in and talk to some of these folks who created some of those stories that were so meaningful in so many of our lives.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
let's bring David on.
let's do it.
Our guest today is an award winning and fan favorite artist. Over the last 30 plus years, some of his highlights include Moon Knight and Ultimate X Men for Marvel Comics, Batman, Justice League, and Wonder Woman for DC, and Cyberforce and Darkness for Image. In addition to amazing interiors, he's credited with over 700 covers. He's also been teaching art for several years through courses on his website and hundreds of videos on his YouTube channel, and his creator owned series with Robert Kirkman, Skinbreaker, launched last year. Captain America fans know his work from the classic Avengers Disassembled 2004 story, as well as launching New Avengers in 2005. He also penciled Fallen Sun, The Death of Captain America #4, the Depression one shot. And for fans of the Ultimate Universe, he's drawn Cap in Ultimatum. We are very excited to have David Finch join us today. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Very excited to have you. And we want to get into your current and your upcoming work, talk about all kinds of things. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about your pre-career days. Did you grow up reading comics, and did you have a favorite title or a character?
I did not grow up reading comics actually at all. I just really wasn't exposed to them. I had seen So my experience with comics, my cousin had some comics, and I remember going through. There were some old DC things, and I remember seeing, I think it was a Green Lantern, and an amazing cover. I loved it, and I grabbed it, and when I opened it up, it just was not the same, which is common, and it just didn't get me. And so years passed. I was in high school, and I got into music, and the whole things were different back then. You remember, like you were who you liked as music or what you liked as music, and that was kind of my whole thing. And so I was quite a bit older, uh, 18, by the time my sister read comics. And I used to tease her about it. I thought, oh, these are for kids. What are you doing? And then I needed something to read. I used to read a lot of books. I still do. And so I picked up her X-Men by John Byrne and Chris Claremont. And I started reading it, and I couldn't believe how, it was like a life-changing experience for me. It made me a huge X-Men fan and a huge comics fan. I started stealing all of her books, which she hated. It used to be this, I would steal them and then try and bring them back so she wouldn't notice. So for, a couple of years, I read all of the X-Men and New Mutants, and that was really her thing. Alan Davis with Excalibur, all that stuff. ElfQuest, you remember? I don't know if you're familiar with ElfQuest.
The Peonies, yeah.
Richard Wendy Peeney. I read all that. It's great stuff. Anyway, and it wasn't until I was 20 when I had dropped out of high school again. That had happened a couple of times. I was really struggling. I wasn't such a terrible kid. I just was aimless, and I thought, okay, I need to find something to do, and just the idea of drawing for a living, it just didn't seem like a possibility. It's just, it'd be like a pipe dream, but I couldn't imagine it. I just had no avenue to go about it. And so I think I had a point where I was finally maybe mature enough to give it a try. And the minute I sat down and drew, in retrospect, it was terrible. I know it was very bad, but it felt good. And it felt like I could do this, and you don't know what you don't know when you start, which is, I think, that false confidence kind of keeps you going, which is great. But yeah, that started me going. I'm very obsessive, and I just drew all the time. It took me about 2 years to finally, get my first break.
Yeah, I think you had, I in another interview, I heard you say that you referred to yourself as, quote, obsessive, goal-oriented person.
Yes, at my best, I'm an obsessive, goal-oriented person. I wish I could say that that's true all the time. I think there are people that are truly like that all the time, and it's always goal in every moment of their day, and it's not true. I'm really not. At my best, I am. At my worst, I'm sitting down playing solitaire and watching YouTube when I should be working. So, I want to be kind of honest about that. It's tough, to work all the time and really put everything you have into everything all the time. That's what it takes, and it's hard to do that all the time. I do my best.
Did you find drawing when you started to be therapeutic in some way?
Yes, it really was. And it's funny. It was incredibly therapeutic, actually. It gave me direction that I just didn't have. And it gave me also something that, so I want to say something that I couldn't master, as if I had mastered other things, which I had not. So I don't want to say that like it wasn't the case, but it was something that I couldn't master, but that I also felt like I had an ability to do. And so it just felt like a worthwhile life endeavor. Like right away, I thought, this is, it's just for me. And I could see, Mark Silvestri, my biggest, earliest influence, and my teacher, really, the work that he could do. I was very clueless. Every young artist is. It's very difficult to know what you don't know, but I could just see, what was on the page with what he was doing. So I could see what was possible. And it really, it just motivated me right from the beginning, gave me a direction in my life, and made me feel like, nothing had stuck for me. And I know I was driving my parents crazy. I've got boys of my own now, and I kind of go through that, like, you need to find your thing. And so, yeah, it's really when I found my thing, it was a really life-changing thing for me.
And I want to get to Mark Silvestri in a moment, but I want to circle back to what you had said, that, what we do as, in our youth, a lot of it identifies us. And you mentioned, music. What music identified you back then when you were a teenager?
So I was into heavy metal. And so around in public school, the last couple of years, and then in high school, I loved Kiss and Poison and Motley Crue. I still love Motley Crue.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And then that wasn't cool anymore because we found Metallica. And so if you liked Motley Crue still, wow, it's a problem. And so, we were all into Metallica and Megadeth and all that stuff. And then like a year later, it was like the heavier stuff like Slayer. And, it got to a point where, okay, I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of not even music anymore. And since then I've
Noise
kind of
with the
back.
beat.
I'm a little more in the, the Metallica kind of, and a lot of like some old 70s stuff. I like a lot of things now, but some of the heavier stuff that we listened to in high school, I listen to now. I'm like, what were we doing? It's nuts.
Let's get back to what you were saying about Mark Silvestri, with him being, someone who you looked up to and emulated, and then also became your teacher when you joined Top Cow. So here it is like, the mid 90s, and it's shortly after, a few years after the big boom with Image. So talk about that teaching experience, because I've heard you tell some really cool stories of your fellow colleagues that are in the room with you and are all around Mark's table, and maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, that happened all the time. He would. So what would happen? Basically, we would sit and draw, and he was hands off and hands on at the same time. And you need to be with any young artist. You need to let them develop in their own time. No, you can't push somebody through it. But he would come through and look at what we're doing, and he would also. I appreciate it so much now, more than I did at the time. When I came in, I did make work projects. Basically, I did a series of pinups, which weren't even really jobs. They're just, here, this is something that you can do. Because none of us were ready. I certainly wasn't ready to do, an actual book. And he would come through, he would look at what we're drawing and then point out a few things that were wrong and maybe do a little redrawing. And he's so incredibly insightful that when he would walk away, it would just make sense, like a concept that, and there's so many, it's tough to even think. I have a few that really stand out for me, over the years, but every time we would all learn something. And so Top Cow wouldn't have been what it was without that. We went from when we started very, very small to just a couple years later being, I felt like we were kind of the center of the industry. Now, a lot of that was Mike Turner with Witchblade. He really put us on the map. But so much of it really was just Mark nurturing us as artists. And even artists at Top Cow that learned from Mark that didn't really move on into comics, like Clarence Lansang. He did Batman Darkness and a few other, like some Darkness projects. And he's since moved on to doing advertising work for Hollywood, movie posters, video game posters, all that kind of thing. He's an art director now, very, very successful. Andy Park is, and I'm going to get the title wrong, but he's essentially in charge of design at Marvel Studios. And he got his start at Top Cow too. Same thing. He was a little bit younger than me. I remember him starting out. He was drawing Tomb Raider for a while at Top Cow. So many incredible artists really came up from that system. And it was a result of Mark's, generosity in teaching. And that's something that I've really tried to keep in mind. It's just how much it meant to me as an artist.
So let's talk about your transition from, because you were there for maybe 6 years or so, I guess, from Top Cow, and then you actually, the last thing I think you were doing was writing and drawing your own creation, which was Ascension, to now getting work with Marvel. Can you talk about that transition from how you previously worked, where and you've described this before as I'm using your words. You were like, I created large splash pages with men flexing muscles, to now smaller panels and working on your storytelling.
It was an incredible challenge. I went from, drawing, I would get a script and it would be 2 pages basically, and it would just outline scenes. And so I'd have all the ability in the world to do all the storytelling myself, which is a skill for sure, but it's also an incredible way to cheat. If there are things that I don't really want to draw, if I don't want to draw that big establishing shot of New York City and get all that stuff in there and make it really alive, because that's hard. I'll just draw a big head, and you can kind of do that, and then the writer has to work around you. And we were working that way. So going to Marvel, where things were much more, I was working with Brian Bendis, an incredible writer. Now, I'll say in a minute, I had it so easy with Bendis because he's also an artist, so it made it easier. But it was a real mindset change. I felt like Marvel's values were different. It was much more story oriented, which was hard for me because I had come up from the artists are king and we're what's important, and then to kind of have to take a bit of a backseat to writers was hard. I did not like it, but at the same time, I did like the fact that I could see that readers were actually becoming engaged with the stories again. And it created, this is all Joe Quesada's doing, and it really created an era of Marvel that I think is a real golden age. And it reestablished, I think, a balance in the way that comics are made, because without a great story, you could have great art, and some of my favorite comics, honestly, are like that, and that's all right, but it doesn't create the full experience. These are stories. And so, yeah, it was a real mindset change to be able to tell a story and not lose elements. I was very fortunate to work with Bendis because there were actually times that he would even just draw the layout for me because I just didn't know what to do. I was so out of my element that he would say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And it made it very, very easy. I think much easier than that transition would have been.
So did he sometimes do that for you when you were on Ultimate X-Men, or did that stop, or did he also maybe with the Avengers stuff too?
He did it with one page of the Avengers, and it was a double page spread. It was very complex, and he knew exactly what he wanted for it. And I did not know what he was talking. I could not figure it out, you know? And so he said, let me just, so yeah, he did that for an Avengers page. I don't know if that's something he still does. I would imagine probably. He's worked with so many young artists that have gone on to, you know, have very successful careers. And I would imagine that my experience is not that different.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've always a Bendis fan, and I mean, there's a lot of quiet moments in his story, and we'll talk a little bit about your style and how you kind of transition to having some quiet moments to go hand in hand along with the big splash pages. And so we might as well talk about Avengers Disassembled. So, it's a 4-part story. You're brought on at they go with issue 500, right? I think you had done one issue prior to that, but so 500 through 504 is the famous classic Avengers Disassembled story that came out. And I want to say 2004, because I just opened my comic store in Atlanta at the time, and it was a big deal. And so here you are doing this disassembled story, and it had a really cinematic feel to it. And so with you had some large panoramic shots, some really cool close-ups. Were you trying to kind of go with a cinematic look because of this event feel that the story had?
Yes, I really was, for sure. Also, at the time, Brian Hitch had come out with Authority and then The Ultimates. And that was a really kind of groundbreaking series of books that he did. And it was very much shot like a movie. And I think Brian Hitch deserves more credit for Marvel making the cinematic universe what it was than any other artist. Him and, I have to say Adi Granov, with what he did with Iron Man. But I was looking at a lot of that stuff, and that was, it felt right to me. And also Brian Hitch, he's very Alan Davis influenced, and Alan Davis is a very big influence for me. So the felt right. And so I was looking at a lot of his stuff. I also found Frank Quitely. Now he was doing X-Men at the time, but he'd also done Authority, and I was looking at a lot of his Authority work that he did right around the same time as Brian Hitch, and they both have incredible storytelling. They both draw great action, and it's like a widescreen format, which was a new thing at the time. Nobody was really doing that much, and it's nothing new out there. I mean, somebody's always done it before, but that they were really doing a lot with that, and so those were my kind of biggest influences in terms of storytelling.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Brian Hitch is underrated, and we actually had him on the show. I love his red coat stuff that he's doing. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, but it's beautiful. Um, so considering the major events that are happening in this disassembled, right? I mean, we have several deaths. There's other surprises. What was your reaction to getting the scripts, and did you have a hard time not being able to publicly talk about it?
I did have a hard time not publicly talking about it. And I did get caught publicly. Not so much, I didn't publicly talk about it, but I did tell somebody at a bar at one point. So there was a character called Ronin, and this is New Avengers. And Ronin had a secret identity. And I went and told somebody at a bar, and then they went and told everybody. And I got the call from Marvel saying, David, this is, they were very upset. And they were very nice, but they were not happy. And so, yeah, there was that one. I got caught out for that.
Hold on. What kind of bar are you in where you have comic fans? Because if I started talking about comics at a bar, I'd probably get punched in the face. So was this like outside like Marvel or something?
Okay, first of all, I'm going to say you'd be amazed, and maybe I don't know that you would be. You could talk about comics nowadays with the movies where they are anywhere.
True, good point. But yeah,
this would be at a comic convention. Yeah, so I was talking to somebody else in the industry, and I thought that foolishly, I thought that it was going to be confidential. I should have known, and so I've gotten more careful since then. But yeah, it was a big one for me to let out, and I mean. They didn't do anything to me other than it was, yeah, I got the very disappointed, and I tried never to do it again. But yeah, so that was a bit of a problem. I would say the other thing that really struck me with it is when we did Disassembled, I could see that what we were doing was really shaking up Avengers a lot. And Avengers is a book with, and at the time was a book with so much history. And dedicated fans. And I knew that what we were doing, I could see it when I was reading the scripts, and they were great scripts. I loved it. I loved it. I believed in it, but I was very afraid. And I knew that it was going to be something that was going to be very upsetting for people. And it was. And I remember that that was difficult because there's always the debate, who really owns the characters and who owns the stories, the people writing them or the people reading them. I think when you're working on these stories, you have to take some kind of ownership, and it's a responsibility. But it is ultimately the fans that own these characters. If we don't have fans, we have nothing. And I, as a fan, because I'm also a fan, I feel like I have some ownership over, I get invested in characters, and I want to see them treated properly. I want to see them behave like themselves, and I don't want to see somebody come along and just kill a bunch of my favorite characters. And I felt like that about it. It was tough. I stand behind what we did, but I certainly understand why people were mad, and I don't think that they were wrong to be mad.
That's a great point. I mean, I will say, as a fan and as a comic shop owner at that time, I was invigorated by, as a fan, the stories. It was like, wow. I really, I've always been a Captain America fan, but I really didn't follow the Avengers too much because it just, this is all, of course, pre-MCU, right? So it just, I don't know. They were second. They were, X-Men was the group, and so on, right? So number one, the story was just like, wow. And then from a comic shop, owner's perspective, wow, the sales just, skyrocketed as far as everybody wanted to get in on this story. So I hear what you're saying about, fans also getting upset because, hey, listen, if I'm a Hawkeye fan, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. We did Hawkeye dirty. Not the only one, but yeah, it was, there were a few where, you look at the broad history of comics over the years, and some of that stuff, it diminishes in importance a little bit. But I remember I was a huge fan of Spider-Woman. I thought she was great. I loved drawing her. And then she was a Skrull. I was so mad. I was not happy about that. So, I really, even though I'm working on a lot of the stuff, uh, it reminds me of working with Jeff Johns. We did Forever Evil, and I don't want to skip ahead to something totally different, but we did Forever Evil, and he had Bizarro in that story, and he wrote Bizarro so incredibly well, and it's really a testament to how great he is as a writer that I love that character so much that when he died, I was so mad. I emailed him and said, we can't do, like, I know you have to do it. It's fine. It's a story. Like, it has to take. You have to tell your story, but yeah, it was tough. So yeah, I would say Avengers is not the only time that this has happened. The other big time for me is, and again, I'm kind of skipping a little bit, but I did Ultimatum, which was the Ultimate Universe with the Avengers, X-Men, basically everyone. And we killed everybody, sometimes in truly horrific ways. And I have to say, it was so much fun to draw. But even as I was drawing it, I thought, oh no, this is not going to go over well for a lot of people. And it didn't. There were things that were tough for me. There was a character I designed. I did a redesign of Dazzler, and I killed her basically off panel. That was tough.
I do want to ask you about this because obviously the Ultimate Universe is separate than the Earth 616, the main universe, right? And so the canon had not been nearly as long established when Ultimatum came along. So was it even the least bit liberating to work on a book where you kind of had a little bit more of a free hand because you did kill off a lot of superheroes and supervillains? Blob did not end well. And so, does that, because when you're working on, the main books, there's a lot more, I would imagine, guardrails in place. But when you're in a playground like the Ultimates universe, it seems like you might have a lot more fun.
I would say, I think it's very different as an artist versus, being a writer. As a writer, absolutely, I would say that, yes, having the ability to just go with your own version of something and try the kinds of things you couldn't do otherwise would be great. As an artist, maybe it depends on the artist, but I know for me, all of that history and the artists that worked on the book before and that continuity, I don't know, I really, really like that, actually. It's some of my favorite things about it is, I feel like I know the characters, and that actually makes a really big difference for how I approach it. It makes it much easier to read the script and visualize them. And so I actually enjoy that history a lot. And I don't know if every artist would say that necessarily, but for me, yeah, there's certainly fun things about doing something that it's like a reimagining. You can just try different things. And so, a character shows up for the first time and you get to do a total redesign, and it really doesn't matter because the original character is still there and you're not wrecking them by doing this. That is fun.
Yeah. Well, we do have a few questions from our patrons that we'll be sprinkling in as we go along here. And the first one is from Tom Boyd. And he wants to know what it's like working on a big event like Avengers Disassembled. Are there conversations that lead up to it? And as an artist, are you as involved in that process as the writers?
I'm completely not involved as an artist at all, which I am so happy about, because behind the scenes, the amount of work and planning and, editorial and there's the book, and then there are tie-in books, and there are all these different things. And that would be a lot. And I never have to deal with that. And that is nice. So it really is. I get a script. Rarely I'll have something in the script saying that this scene is going to be established in this particular other book that's going to tie into it. And so we don't have this established yet. So don't draw this yet, and so that's happened a couple of times. I've actually had to redraw a couple of things because things slip through the cracks continuity wise. And so I did the script right, I'm going to say in my defense, but it ultimately didn't work so, you just fix it. And so there are issues like that will come up rarely. I've been, you work with, Tom Brevoort, he's such a pro. He's so good at what he does. Bendis or Jeff Johns. I mean, they're experts at doing this kind of thing. So those things don't come up much. But yeah, no, nobody says, "Hey, Dave, what do you think about what we should do with our event?" They know what they're doing. I just draw the pictures.
Um, so you mentioned something earlier about kind of getting out of your comfort zone when you made that transition from Top Cow to Marvel. And I think I've heard you say this before in another interview too, is that previously, if you were given a choice between something you were comfortable drawing and something you were not, well, you choose the more comfortable item. So in both your Avengers books, there is a good amount of like skyscrapers and buildings in your panels and tremendous amount of detail. There's vehicles, there's helicarriers, helicopters, jets. Um, were these some of the types of things that kind of pushed you?
Uh, they were. It was certainly it was a different experience because of that. And there were times, not only just the backgrounds and all of the different vehicles and all that kind of thing, but there would just be panels where it would say the list of characters would be a massive paragraph long. And so I couldn't just draw a crowd. It had to be a crowd of very specific people. And that's panel 1. And now I'm on panel 2, and page 2 or page whatever. The next page is due the next day. So there was some stress there with that, for sure. When I look at those books, when I look at Avengers, I can see places where I was having, it's always the case. I have the dream version of how I would like to do every scene in my head, every tiny little window and every little detail, and also the angles you choose. Certain angles can, just by their nature, end up being a lot more detailed than other angles. So I can see a lot of places where I'm angling the camera upward from below characters, because then you see more sky, things like that, decisions like that, it's just necessary just to make it work. So yeah, that was definitely a big learning experience for me. I think all the backgrounds. Now, I enjoy drawing backgrounds quite a bit, actually. What I like, my favorite thing about comics, and I do enjoy doing covers a lot for sure, but what I love the most is creating a world that my favorite artists, it's not photorealistic, and I don't want it to be. I want it to be an artist's vision kind of the world that I can believe in just enough that I can lose myself in it. And it's always my goal to try and create that as much as I can, and I really enjoy that aspect of it.
Now, I love that. Just enough where you can lose yourself in it, because really, isn't that what comics are all about? Escapism, right?
Yeah, and it can take so many different forms, from Sean Gordon Murphy, where things are much more. There's like a real Jorge Safino. If you guys watching are familiar, a lot of blacks with whiteout and more graphic shapes, and some splatter, and it's just more graphic. To something like Jeff Darrow, where every little detail is in there, and it's endless. But they both have the same effect for me, that I feel like I can lose myself in what they do.
So we do have a patron, Michael Johnson, who, it's not so much a question as a statement, but he says David Finch has a skill in drawing chiaroscuro, which is, you may be familiar with it, an artistic technique that contrasts dark and light to provide tension. And is that something that informs your particular technique?
It does, and thank you, Michael Johnson, very much. Especially thank you for putting it in such a smart sounding way. When I got into comics, everybody was doing basically the Jim Lee, Will Spertasio sort of style, which I love, and that's largely what made me want to draw. But I couldn't pull it off with the really long rendering, the double lighting. It was a really specific kind of a style that was very popular at the time, a lot of cross hatching. I could not do it, and I beat my head against that wall for 6 months or so at Top Cow trying, before I finally realized that I needed to, try something different. And I found Simon Bisley, a huge, huge favorite of mine, my favorite artist actually now. I love his painted work. I found Mike Mignola. Mike Mignola really taught me shadow just looking at his work. And it's very simple. it's I always feel like I insult him by saying it's simple, because it's not. To do what he does, like a simple style is so complex to get right. It's very difficult, more difficult than to just put a ton of detail on something. So I hope I'm not, belittling it by saying simple, but it felt understandable to me. And I felt like I could see rules in the way that he approached things. Uh, and so I started going more in that direction. I also had Mark Silvestri, who really understood how to frame with shadow and also to layer. So you put a light shape down, you put a dark shape behind it, and then you layer another light shape behind it. And so whatever it is you're doing, you're basically doing a back and forth, and you can create so much depth just by layering lights and darks. I learned so much from that. So I think it was really with Mark's guidance, and also just trying to go in a different direction. So much so that now I struggle mightily if I can't use shadow. It's very difficult for me. I feel like the whole foundation of my art kind of, it falls away a little bit. Like a hospital scene, the hardest things for me to draw, somebody going to a hospital and
With all
they're,
that
in a
light.
hospital bed and people are visiting, and I cannot put lots of shadow in. It doesn't work for that kind of scene, and I'm lost.
Yeah. Um, I want to, before I do want to talk to you a little bit about the darker tone. But before I do, you mentioned crosshatching. Uh, and for any aspiring artists out there, first of all, you need to check David Finch's YouTube channel. He has amazing tutorials on there. I watched one recently where you showed how to crosshatch. It was just absolutely fascinating. Um, so obviously, your career now versus your career then, you've learned a lot, and it's
Mhm.
amazing sharing that knowledge. But getting to Avengers Disassembled and also the beginning of your new Avengers run, the art definitely had a darker tone, um, and which really matched the mood of the story. And was that more you, or was that the colorist Frank Daramatta? Was something like, because of the mood of the story, was that something you were trying to convey?
Uh, it it's how I felt comfortable drawing. Really, I knew that I was drawing Avengers, and the artist that I associate the most with Avengers is George Perez, and I'm a huge fan of the work that he did. Uh, Carlos Pacheco, who didn't do anywhere near as much, but he did some of my favorite Avengers work. I think it might actually be like alternate universe event. I don't know, but I want to say it was Mark Waid
Well,
who wrote
it
it.
was
Anyway, I've
the
got the book.
12-issue miniseries, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, the
beautiful stuff, but also very light. And I knew that I couldn't do that. It's just beyond. And I remember talking to Brian Bendis about it and saying, like, I can't, like, I'm not the right artist for that kind of book. And he said, well, just, do what you do. And so I did. I just drew it the way that it felt most comfortable at the time, especially. And I always debate in my head about this back and forth, but when I got to Marvel, I was finding that the rendering style that I was using at Top Cow was not translating well, and I wasn't liking how it was turning out on the page. I just found, with the way that I was being inked and the way that things were printing, I decided, you know what, I'm going to pull back on rendering and just go really for more of a dark and light style and just a little bit of rendering here and there. And that's how I was working on Avengers. Um, I think with Moon Knight, I started adding a little bit more rendering again, and it started coming in. And then, a couple years later, I was putting in so much of it. I had my wife saying, "You got, like, you draw a picture, it looks pretty nice, and then you kill it," And I'm with all these little lines. But at the time, I was very much going for a more simple style, and it wasn't a time issue. Rendering does not take me that long to do; it's pretty quick. Uh, but I was just finding I wasn't like how it was translating, so I think it lent itself to that look. And I wonder all the time, because I use a lot of rendering now. Am I helping or am I hurting my art? And I don't know. I kind of go back and forth sometimes.
in New Avengers, we getting back to the buildings and things like that. We see the Stark Tower for the first time. And you mentioned, about Brian Hitch and the Ultimate Universe and how that contributed to the MCU. We see years later in the MCU, in the Avengers movie, we see the Stark Tower. What was that like, seeing your design up there on the big screen?
It was not my design.
It wasn't.
It was not. No. It was actually designed in a different book, and I'm just gonna say it right now. So there were a couple of designs. I did an initial design of Ronin that you can actually see on an alternate cover for issue 1 of New Avengers that Joe
Oh, right.
Quesada
The one
hated.
that makes that big image, right? There's like different
Right now,
characters.
there's that cover, but there's also one that I did, and it's got Ronin on it, but you would never know it's Ronin. It looks totally different because I just designed him on the page, which I used to do. I still do if I can get away with it. Joe Quesada was not happy because he had a very specific idea of what he wanted that character to be. So he ultimately designed Ronin. That was not me. I loved it, and it was great. Like I think he did a great job with it. So I was happy. And the tower, I fought with the tower. I did it. And it was a little bit, I have a tendency with my design. This is a constant problem, and I still have that problem. It's very difficult for me to think in terms of broad, simple shapes, which I think is the best way to design something. And I like intellectually, I know this. The best designs are very, very simple and just immediate. When I design things, they tend to be very detail oriented. And sometimes that'll work and sometimes it doesn't. And it did not work with that tower. And I can't remember exactly who it was that did design it. I think it appeared because there were a few other books that were tying in at the same time. And it might have been Olivier Coipel, maybe.
Oh, okay.
If I had to guess, like, I'm pretty sure it was Olivier, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, point being, it wasn't me. So yeah, I can't take credit for that.
Both Avengers Disassembled and your run on New Avengers, man, there's something for everybody because you have featured a dizzying array of heroes and many villains as well. So I'm curious, are there any villains or superheroes that are particularly difficult that you don't enjoy drawing, or perhaps you mentioned Spider-Woman as one that you really do enjoy drawing?
Yeah. I found now he didn't last long. He was in Avengers Disassembled. And he's the card character.
Oh, Jack of Hearts?
That's right. Thank you. I'm
the
sorry.
zombie Jack of
Avengers
Hearts.
fans.
Yeah.
He was so hard for me to draw. I don't know why. There's nothing particularly about him, but yeah. And then there'll just be characters that just have like a particular head, like helmet shape that I have trouble. I need to be able to take somebody's or anything and be able to turn it kind of in 3D in my head to make it work. And sometimes that can be a little difficult. And he was hard for me that way. I found Iron Man to be incredibly difficult for a long time. And I got to a point where I started getting comfortable with them and I started feeling, okay, I know what I'm doing with them and I could just draw them and I didn't have to look at something every time. Looking back, I find that the Iron Man that I was drawing when I wasn't having to look at anything anymore was also much worse. So, I was better off looking at something, but it was a lot of work.
You're not alone when it comes to Jack of Hearts, because I saw you at OAX and I think I heard a couple of people saying they were trying to get a Jack of Hearts commission and a couple of the artists were like, no, just not doing it.
Yep. I try very hard to not say no to a commission. I want it to be what somebody wants it to be, and there are some that are just really difficult, like the Wolverine, Weapon X Wolverine with that big helmet.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
When somebody says, "Hey, can you?" Because I do these 15-minute like small sketches. Can you do Wolverine with the helmet? And I'm like, oh no, here we go. Wheels are coming off now. Like, there's no way. And I just do it, and half an hour later, there you go. But yeah.
I thought you were going to say because of all the body hair, and you had to have all that time rendering the body hair. But
actually, that is a good point. Yeah, I save all that time. That's totally true.
Just speaking of Wolverine, so in Fallen Sun, Death of Captain America 4, main character Spider-Man, but Wolverine also is in there. And this came out June 20th of 2007, which was about 3.5 months after Captain America 25. So when you got this assignment, had that issue coming out yet, or was this news to you that Cap was killed?
It was not news to me, and I don't remember how I knew if the book was out, or I do knew that I know that I knew. I don't remember how exactly.
Were you
So yeah,
surprised? What was your reaction to hearing that after Civil War, Cap was killed?
um, I don't know that surprised is really because it's comics, and this kind of thing happens. I never like it when characters are killed, um, knowing that they just have to come back. It's, I mean, so much of what we do is gimmicks, and I feel like killing a character that you all know as they die will come back. It's not my favorite.
Hmm.
So I didn't love that. What I did love though, first of all, in drawing that book, it was a huge honor for me because John Cassaday did an issue, and John Romita Jr. did an issue. Ed McGuinness, like it was such a great list of artists to be in a miniseries with. I was very flattered just to be asked. And it's also a very personal story for Jeff Loeb. He had lost his son, and a lot of what he was going through, I think, really comes through in that story. And so it made it very, kind of poignant for me, drawing it, reading the script, and reading, some of what he had happening in there with Rhino at the grave. Yeah, it made it a very special story to draw.
Yeah, the five stages of grief, and yeah, thanks for bringing up about Jeff Loeb because I forgot about that personal uh, touch when writing that script. And the issue that you were doing had some amazing fight scenes. There's a couple of just double page splashes that were just, I mean, talk about detail that allowed you to uh, illustrate some of Spider-Man's history. The death of Gwen Stacy, the battle with Hulk, fighting alongside with Captain America. It must have been a real fun assignment.
That was some of the most fun I've ever had in comics. There are highlights for me. Like I look back over the years and I think, what are the issues and what are the times when I was having the absolute most fun, and that's maybe the top of the list. Maybe. Um, I look back on drawing Batman with Tom King. That was some of the most fun I ever had, if not the most. Some of the Moon Knight stuff. So there were, but yeah, it was. It was a great experience to draw. And I had a little bit more time with that issue. I think I want to say it took me um, like a month and a half or even 2 months. And, as a monthly artist, and I had been doing monthly for a long time, to be able to just kind of take a bit of a breath and take a little more time. Like I did a page of Rhino smashing into Spider-Man, double page spread. And I probably spent 4 days on that, which I never had the luxury to do. So
Oh, the amount of detail is, amazing. It's just
thank you.
absolutely beautiful. Did you? I see there's some art framed behind you. Do you keep some pages or anything from some of these books that do mean something to you?
I have a few, yeah. I don't keep a huge amount, but I have a few. Generally speaking, in my office, I don't really have my own art up too much. Okay, I say that I've got two huge ones behind me, but those are from a convention years ago. And when DC was finished with them, they gave them to me, and my wife framed them for me, so I put them up. So yeah, but for the most part, I like putting up other people's artwork, and I'm a very big collector of relatively cheap art from my favorite artists. I can't afford to buy the expensive stuff, but I've got tons of it and tons that I need to frame. You buy the art and it costs money,
Yeah, yeah,
and
I
then you have to
do.
frame it, and that also costs a lot of money. So I've got a huge file of art that I'm slowly getting framed, but then I keep buying more. So yeah, once you
Yeah.
get addicted to it, it's tough to stop.
Yeah.
You're not telling Rick anything he doesn't know.
Yeah. You're talking to an addict right now. Hi, I'm Rick, and I'm addicted to original art.
Yeah. So we have another question from a patron, Matthew Glover, and you're a creator, but you're also a fan. And Matt wants to know: the Ultimatum story was controversial, to say the least. What
Yes.
was it like when you were working on Ultimatum, and did the reception surprise you?
No, no, absolutely not. Yeah, I feel like I would have to be living under an absolute rock to not have expected. I knew how that was going to go over. I knew it was going to be very, very tough. And I'm always so torn. I had a, oh, first of all, I'm just going to say I had an incredible time drawing it. How I feel about a story, that's going to affect how I feel about drawing it, sure, but really how I feel about how cool a scene is to draw, that's when I'm drawing it, that's the most important thing. It was so much fun to work on. Also, just working with Jeff Loeb is always such a pleasure. I had a great time, you know, but while I was drawing it, I knew that this was going to be, it was going to be very controversial. I remember, so the most controversial panel page, really, it was a splash page in the whole series, was the wasp eating, or no, the blob eating the wasp.
Yeah.
It was written as a splash page in the script, and I read it and I thought, we can't do this. Like, this is stupid. Like, there's no way you can't we can't do this. And I thought, I talked to my wife. I said, like, what am I going to do? Because it's a splash page. I could rearrange other pages and do everything I can to downplay it and silhouette it. I can do that, or I can play it straight. And just, if I'm going to do that, though, I just need to just do it. And I thought, okay, you know what? This is the job. This is what we're doing. So I put everything I had into just making that as horrible as it, and it is horrible. And I knew when I was drawing it, I knew when the book came out, and yes, the reaction was not great. Yeah, I'm sure there are some fans out there that hate me to this very day, and I'm sorry to you all. It was fun to draw, though.
Well, speaking of fun to draw, Skinbreaker, which is your own creation with Robert Kirkman, issue 8 came out at the end of April, which is the finale to the miniseries. Is there going to be a collection coming out soon?
There is, yes. We're gonna have a collection now. I don't know what I can say, just because I don't know what we've announced, and I know it's always a risk for me to. We have things coming. Let me just say that and be vague, because this is how I get myself in trouble. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and then I get the call, David. So yeah, but we do have some stuff coming out. I'm very excited about for it. It will definitely be collected.
So, for those for who are not familiar with the series, maybe you could describe it for our listeners.
Okay, this is where I wish Robert were here, because he does it so incredibly well. And I actually got pretty good at it, because I did a bunch of interviews with him where I was parroting what he was saying. I'm the worst sales pitch person but so bear that in mind when you hear this. Don't let my horrible description of the story turn you off. It is the story of a tribe kind of on an alien world, a more primitive alien world, that have tradition that's dated back hundreds or even thousands of years. And times are changing, the world is changing, and the people of the tribe need to decide whether to change with the times and adapt and grow, or to dig their feet in and try and force the world to, basically bend the world to the way that they've always known. And that there are, kind of reasons to, I think both sides of that kind of argument that come up in the tribe have some valid kind of points. So it makes it a little complex. It's a very simple story in a lot of ways too. It's just a very kind of human story. Ironically, they're no humans, but it's very broad, and I think it's some of the best writing that Kirkman's done. I was very proud to be able to draw it, and don't let my terrible description of it turn you off from reading it. It's a good story.
It does sound fascinating. I got to tell you, even with your description. Don't worry though, Rick keeps me around for the same reason. So that's why nobody asked me to explain what the podcast is all about. So, but it does sound interesting. I look forward to picking it up.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. We talk about, there's a lot of the skyscrapers. We don't have to worry about those anymore, right? Like there's just
That's right.
Yeah, a lot of natural beauty and so on, and some natural scariness too, right? There's some monsters there that they have to deal with. So it absolutely is stunning. And you mentioned in other interviews how Skinbreaker has all the things that you love doing. So it has the large panels and the action scenes, and those really motivate you. But you also said you're really proud of the quieter moments. And do you feel like you accomplish what you wanted with the series, number one, and number two, is there a new story in the future?
Well, so I'd say number one, I do feel like I accomplished what I wanted to with the series. Yes, because I've been doing this for long enough that I'm realistic. So I know my limitations. So when I think of what I want to do, I want it to be the very best that I can make it. And I was able to do that. It is as good as I was able to make it. I spent every minute on every page to make sure that I did not know of the places where it could be better is beyond me to make it better. So I was able to do that. I'm very proud of that. In terms of the quieter moments, I credit Bendis. We talked about Bendis, Robert Kirkman,
Right, sure.
with he wrote a great story. He wrote very real characters, and I think that's why those work. It's really not my strong suit, and I never have felt like it was. And I've tried to get better at it, competent at it, and I feel like I'm competent at it. But there are artists that do it so much better. So when I think about how much I love those scenes, it's really me talking about how much I love the story.
So what is next for you? What is keeping you busy? Are there any projects coming up that you can share with the listeners?
Ken, and thank you so much for asking. I appreciate it. I have Terminal coming up. Terminal is a new comic from Skybound, written by Joe Casey and Robert Kirkman. It's also being drawn by Andy Kubert and Arthur Adams. And that comes out in July. It's coming up in July, so very soon. Andy is drawing the first 5 issues. I'm doing 3 issues directly after that. There's an Arthur Adams issue in there, and then I've got a few, and then Arthur's got. And so anyway, we're all working on the book. It's called Terminal. It's very much a throwback to, you know what? Let me show you.
Yeah, what's it about?
So I have my phone just keeps. I apologize, but this is Terminal. And you can see just looking at the cover, give you an idea of the kind of book it is. This is such a, kind of early 90s, all the great stuff that was being done with X-Men, that era. That's really the heart and soul of what this book is. And so, that's coming up. And I am so incredibly excited to see this book hit the shelves. I think it's going to go over very, very well.
Excellent. So it's Joe Casey and Robert Kirkman.
Joe Casey, Robert Kirkman. It'll be in color, by the way. This is a preview.
Mm-hmm.
So,
when does that come out?
In July.
In July. All right. So for our listeners out there, make sure that you reach out to your comic shops and give them advance notice that you want this, and add it to your pull list so that they can get those orders in and print accordingly.
Thank you for that.
Of course. Yeah. No, I will add it to my list. You named a whole bunch of creators I really, really enjoy.
Oh, me too. Yeah, it was very easy for me to agree to do this book. I thought, okay, 90s X-Men, I'm already in. It's like, you don't have to say anything else, and it's its own story. It's not X-Men, but it's very much inspired by that, aesthetic and feel, and like it's over the top. And then you add Andy Kubert, who's one of my biggest influences, and then you add Arthur Adams, who's one of all of our biggest influences.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're both legendary artists. So I'm thrilled.
Well, and you know what? You're right up there with them, David. So, you with your long career and amount of work that you've done, including some really big books, I gotta tell you, you don't be too shy. You're right up there with them.
Well, thank you.
And what's the best way for fans to follow you?
Really, YouTube. More than anything, I have a YouTube channel. I don't remember the name of it. It has a name, I'm sure. I don't know.
I'll share the link in the show notes so people can click on
it
and find it very easily.
So we do a live stream every Monday night, generally, not every Monday night, if we're being totally truthful. But try to do it every Monday. Like we did it one just last night. Today is, when we're recording this, it's a Tuesday. So we just did one. So that's really the best way. And then I also have Instagram. It's DFinch Artist at Instagram, whatever. Anyway, I have an Instagram too. I post sometimes.
Well, we'll definitely share the link to your YouTube channel. So, David, I have to say, it's been an absolute blast having you on the show, and we appreciate you taking the time with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Indeed, it's been great talking to you, and learned a lot. So
Well, thank you.
Well, Bob, I always learn something when we have an artist on the show, and who better to learn from David? I mean, like his techniques and how he brings them to life. It's just amazing to see a master at work.
yeah, you a couple times you brought up, and you brought it up when we read it as well, this idea of the cinematic look and feel of David's work, and just incredible, right? Just the level of detail, and just the scope of his art. Incredible stuff. Like, how does a guy keep up that throughput consistently on a title like that, a story arc like that, and do covers as well? Just incredible to have the opportunity to sit down with a guy of that caliber, and hear how his brain works.
Yeah, 100%. I was so glad he was able to come onto the show. And we have links in the show notes to his website as well as his YouTube channel, so you can go and check those out. Even if you're not an aspiring artist and you just want to see like the kind of like the work that goes into the medium that we love so much, just check that out because fantastic videos. And he's got it broken down by like different categories and everything, so it's really fun.
Yeah, it's cool when a guy who has that level of talent, that level of success, really takes an interest in nurturing younger generations of creators, right, and help building them up so that they have an opportunity like he's had. So kudos to David for doing that work.
Absolutely. All right, Bob. Next episode, when we come back, it'll be 291, and we are coming back to the Jack Kirby's Mad Bomb. So, listeners, make sure you come back next week for part 5 of that as we do a panel by panel review. If you didn't catch part 4, check out episode 286, and we will see you back here next week. Bob, any final words?
I'll tell you what, I can't wait to do this again next week, Rick.
All right. For Bob Lucius, I'm Rick Verbanis, and we thank you for listening to another episode of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.